Hi everybody, it's Stephen Brooke and welcome to Architectural Photography and Composition. I'd like to talk about architectural details, something I think we should have talked about earlier. This is such an important part in the overall presentation of your work to your client. The idea of a detail is that one element can stand for the whole building. This is the ideal kind of detail. And it takes some analysis when you get to a job. You look over your building and you decide, is there one element in this building that if I isolate it could stand for the whole building, this kind of iconic shot. And here are a couple of examples. These are two from Miami Beach from the Art Deco district. You don't need to see the whole building to get a sense of what these buildings are like. Same thing with the Memorial Church in St. Augustine and the Jefferson Hotel. Here are a couple of others. There's the Patriot Plaza, the Sarasota National Cemetery, and I've picked one aspect of one of these columns to stand for the whole of the Patriot Plaza. Flagler Memorial in Key Biscayne, I have a tight detail on one of these four sculptures holding the train. This is the University of Cincinnati Engineering School that Michael Graves did, and this tight detail here showing the materials, the kinds of forms that they used. This particular image was something that Michael Graves' office used a lot in their presentation of this building. Now, book publishers love details because they are graphically cleaner, simpler, and it allows them more freedom to put type in without having a lot of competing architectural elements. And same thing is true for magazine publishers. They love to have details like this because it gives them room to lay in their type. You can use architectural details to emphasize texture or structure or materials, reflections, play of light in a way that sometimes a shot of the whole building, because there's so much more information there, might get lost or might not get emphasized quite the way you want it. This is very important if you have engineers or contractors that are your clients, because there are aspects of the building that they're most interested in, for example, in certain kinds of space frames, and they would like to see close-ups of those engineering elements, and that's a great use for details. Another thing that's important is if you have an overall shot, there are some unique defining characteristics of the building which might not show up, and a detail will do that for you. Here's a good example. This is the Manhattan Bridge. Here's my overall view. What you don't see in this view is the statues. And here at Tuxedo Estate, in the overall view, what you don't see as well is this incredible brickwork on the chimney. Another thing you can use a detail for is you can use it as a frame to show the siting of the building. And here are two really good examples here, one by the water and one showing buildings on Miami Beach. When you use a detail to create an iconic image of the building, on occasion you have to go in there post-production and clean it up a little bit more. Here's a good example. This is Terminal J out at the airport. When I looked at this, I knew right away that I wanted to use this little tower as my one iconic shot. But it had these little wind vanes here, and there was a little stairway in there, and I took those out to make this as clean as I possibly could. The fewer the elements, we talked about this in still life, the fewer the elements, the tighter your composition has to be. And again, everything must be compositional. Here's Flagler College, which is a career in Hastings building, and this is Gilded Age architecture. This is not Louis Kahn, this is not Corbu. This is highly ornate architecture. And so there were tons of details, and each one of these is as tightly composed as I could get it to concentrate on the detail without any extraneous, no foliage or whatever, without any extraneous anything. Foliage is a problem if you're trying to shoot a super clean detail because the foliage is messy. And if you want to emphasize just the architectural elements, it's a good idea to try to do it without any foliage. Here's a good example. This is a building in Coconut Grove. This is a detail, sure, but I've got these little grody pieces of foliage in here. Now, you could probably go through, it'd be a chore to clean those up and get them out. Better is to look for a detail that doesn't have that issue. And it's right up in here that shows pretty much the same information, the lattice work, the window treatment, all of that, but without the messy foliage. When you do interior details, we follow the same rules, keeping the verticals parallel to the picture plane, but sometimes you can't do that, especially if you're looking up and the details are way overhead. It's impractical to try to square everything up. It might throw things badly out of proportion, so you might have to shoot looking up at something. Of course, it's better to do that with a tighter lens. When you do that, I encourage you to try to still keep the shot axial. That is to say, the horizontals, even though you're looking up, the horizontals stay parallel to the picture plane to help stabilize your composition. Here I'm looking straight up into the cupola. This is at the New York Public Library, and this is a pretty dynamic shot, one-point perspective looking up this way. But to keep things under control, I've kept my horizontals here, 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 and even sort of here, kept them parallel to the picture plane to stabilize the composition. And if, for example, the reason this works is if you were to rotate this, these horizontals basically do what the verticals do and help stabilize your composition. So the summary, every part of your detail has to be compositional. You need to go in and really clean it up. If there are little pieces of whatever in the concrete, or you need to make them as pristine as possible, keeping in mind that these details might be used on a cover. These are your iconic shots of the building. Use axial horizontals to stabilize your composition if you're looking off axis. Subdivide really carefully using proportional systems. Same rules apply. If you have a strong vertical, keep it out of the middle. Do 2:3 proportioning or 3:8 or even rule of thirds to subdivide your picture plane where you're going to put the elements of your detail. Generally, wide-angle lenses don't do as well for details. I have a 24-105 zoom lens that I use a lot for landscape. I use that for details. Somewhere in the 65, 70 to 105 is where I find that's the best focal length for my details. The other thing that I do is I do use my iPhone for details, particularly if I'm setting up a night shot, camera's all set up, everything is perfect. I don't want to move things around. But at that time of day, these little miracles of light can happen, and I don't want to lose those, so I will put my iPhone on its own tripod, and I will go, it's lighter, I can move it more easily, I can get in places that I sometimes can't get in with my camera and bigger tripod. And because it's more fluid, I find it's more creative. I can see little details that I might not have seen otherwise. And for the record, if you've got an iPhone, a 12, a 13, or a 14, shooting in RAW format, those files will be big enough to hold up when you put them in with the rest of your photographs that you've taken with your iPhone. Sure, I mean with your regular camera. You're going to have a large enough file so that when you put them all together, nobody's going to say, why, these look like hell. They're going to be just fine. They're going to work, and I guarantee you may find more creative, you may have a more creative approach when you use your iPhone. So you can do details both with your camera and with your iPhone. Remember, architectural details are a vital part of your overall documentation of your project. They're very, very important. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Please subscribe. And if you have friends that are interested in architectural photography, please mention it to them. We would like to increase our community. And if you would like to support the site, the YouTube videos are free and they always will remain free. Consider going to stephenbrookephotography.com and purchasing a copy of my ebook, Architectural Photography and Composition. It's a 360-page book, and I guarantee you every single page in that book will have something of value to you that will help you in your work. So thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.